Folks, this is the We Get Outdoors 6 in 16 interview series where we introduce you to some of the world's leading outdoor and adventure gear brands and the genius brains behind them. Your chance to get a behind the scenes look into what they're currently doing and what they believe the future for their brand in the outdoors is. And we just know you're going to love them and their brand. So 6 questions, 16 minutes. Ben, are you ready?
Yeah, I think so. I think we can do this.
You can do this, I'm sure. Ben, who are you and why should we care?
My name is Ben Fontenot. Some people struggle with that last name. So I'm a sea kayaker, transplant to the Midwest. I live in Minnesota. And so I am a very passionate rough water sea kayaker. I have kind of allowed that passion to kind of lead me along kind of this career where I am kind of like a freelance professional sea kayaker in the sense that I help the local community to kind of like sort their gear out and all of that, and instruction and stuff if they need. But I am really passionate also about making like custom Greenland paddles. And so that is just kind of boomed. It was the first kind of paddle that I really was interested in when I first started. And, you know, for those that don't know, that's a traditional style kayak paddle or sea kayaking paddle that originated in Greenland. So we're talking thousands of years old, and they're gorgeous. So I was kind of able to pair like my artistic side and like craftsmanship side. I love like working with my hands. And so like I now make custom Greenland paddles for the North America. You know, that's where I can ship them. They're kind of hard to ship. They're a little long, but you know, I can make what I think like a very boutique, high-end custom Greenland paddle that is also like very accessible for everyone. So like I try to make a paddle that, you know, it doesn't really matter what you use or the kayak that you're using. I can, you know, I want to try to share the stoke for the Greenland paddle, and you know, just kind of like what kind of like ignited my flame for like the interest in like being outdoors and kind of like doing all of this, and so yeah, that's a little bit of what I do. And
awesome. And a little declaration. You and I've coached together at Lumpy Waters on the Oregon coast in the past. It's like a freaky reunion that we're having. I love it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. A few years ago.
Now, yeah.
Lumpy Waters.
What an event.
Before like the pandemic too. Gosh, it's like over 100 people in that tent.
That's it. Arguably one of the best sea kayak events on planet Earth, in my opinion. But there we go. I think we're both biased. So, Ben, what should our listeners know about BF Paddles? What are you? What do you do? How do you do it? Why do you do it?
So, what folks should know is that, you know, everybody can make a Greenland paddle. They're very accessible, but what I try to offer is like a level of service and customization and craftsmanship that you may not ordinarily find in a Greenland paddle. And so I also can, you know, I've spent a lot of time, years sourcing out lumber and just shaping and like how to do it and like the best tools for me to do it as quickly as possible. I don't think I could buy a CNC machine that could carve a paddle out faster than me. You know, and so I think on top of just that kind of quality of service and the fact that when you call me, I'm pretty much always going to answer and chat your brain off about paddles. And then I'd like to put beautiful, fancy hardwoods on paddles. I've got really good friends who live up in northern Minnesota that harvest hardwoods, and they make knives and all sorts of things. And we all kind of just share different exotic woods, and it's awesome being able to like give somebody a paddle that kind of has a story behind it, and as well that also fits them in their boat and like their kind of vision for what they want it to look and feel like too. And my brand is BF Paddles. If I'd say like a lot of people are familiar with my website, I've put a lot of work into making it kind of easy to navigate and like a lot of beautiful photos, and like you can size your paddle on it. You can easily get a paddle, and I think that like that's kind of like helped me out a little bit, as well as it's kind of making it very accessible for everyone who may not be able to get in your area.
Cool. So Ben, there's a whole bunch of other paddle manufacturers out there, both Greenland and what sea kayakers would call Euroblade. But I guess for those who aren't sea kayakers, we'll be talking carbon Kevlar, fiberglass, those sorts of material. What is it that sets you apart from all of those other things? And I guess you can expand on that if you wanted to, is what is it that sets the Greenland paddle apart from those fiberglass and carbon Kevlar Eurobladey sort of alternatives?
Sure. So the biggest differences are going to be, obviously the materials that you just mentioned. Typically the Euroblades or your normal kayak paddle is going to be made out of a composite material, because that, it's typically going to be fiberglass or carbon fiber or plastic and aluminum. Sometimes you'll find in some of the more affordable paddles. But what I make are wood. They're made out of Western red cedar, and they look kind of like an airplane propeller. So the surface area is totally different, and they kind of feel like you're kayaking in a low gear. That's probably my best way to describe it. So you're not going to win a sprinting race, but you'll be able to keep your kayak moving at its top speed with a little bit less effort and less kind of maybe like shoulder strain, and that initial catch that you might feel for your strokes is just a little bit dulled down just because of the redistributed surface area. And so they're extremely comfortable to use across the board, just as the style of paddles versus one another. What makes my paddles a little bit different from what you may find on the market for Greenland paddles is that I'd say that the shaping is very fine, that my blade edges are just exact. I get my tips to be very fine and slicey, and the loom, the shaft, the part that you kind of hold on to, I can make in 2 different sizes. And in fact, I can make it pretty much any size somebody wants, but I find that mine are very comfortable. They kind of have a very almond shape to them, so that all you have to do is just kind of comfortably wrap your fingers around them and the paddle's in your hand. I've noticed in the past, and maybe some others as well, you'll see some Greenland paddles, they're kind of big. They're kind of, the diameter is a little bit chunkier than what you might normally feel. And I'm not a big fan of that. And so I've noticed others are not a fan of that either. And so, I think I've made one of the most comfortable Greenland paddles I've ever held. So I'm pretty proud of that.
You should be as well. You should be. Very few people get to turn their passion into a business, and you've done it. So, and if you can do something that customers love to use, that's an even higher level up on that ladder of achievement and pride that you should feel. So now the next question, this won't be a secret after you've told us, but what's the big secret thing you're currently working on that your customers will love?
Probably, I really want to come out with a 2-piece paddle, but it's still in the works. And so, we're looking. I have no ETA on that, but it's something I'm in the conversation of having with other bigger manufacturers who have brand new state-of-the-art facilities that might be able to help me out with such a thing. I also may be able to start offering some pretty funky colored, dyed hardwood tipped and edged paddles, something that's kind of unique and maybe hasn't been seen quite before on Greenland paddles. But yeah, just, these are some things to look out for on the social media, just kind of popping up. But
right. And would the two-piece still be made out of wood?
The two-piece would still be out of wood. It would be a carbon shaft or a carbon ferrule piece, that would be, 18, 19 inches long, give or take, just something that I could plug in with my cedar cores. And, ideally on a paddle like that, I'd probably put some hardwood edges on it too, just because, if you're going to be traveling with it, you'll probably be knocking into some rocks.
Yeah, I had a vision in my head for a second there of how they used to make timber frame buildings with, they make the hole in the post and then make a thing that slots into the hole and then a peg that goes through. And I was just for a second wondering, could you make a two-piece Greenland paddle using a similar methodology to that?
We could get funky and like make a two-piece wooden paddle. It might only be like tight and like really good ferrule grip for a few trips before it really starts to bore out. But you just probably just need to increase your dowel diameter size over the years.
Yeah, that would be super cool.
Yeah.
There we go. We'll chuck some more ideas in there. So, Ben, the past year to 18 months has been one of the most bizarre periods for the outdoor industry and the outdoors that I've ever experienced in my career in the outdoors. All that being said, what do you believe the future of the outdoors and the outdoor industry looks like?
Oh boy. From my experience from BF paddles and just kind of like doing the freelance stuff that I've been doing, a lot of people are, the demand has become so high. People are trying to get that more like direct to like consumer access. So like there hasn't been very much wholesale interest because I think that retailers are realizing that customers are able to just buy directly online. And I think a lot of manufacturers are doing that, and not only paddles, but dryware and accessories. And hey, you might be able to buy a kayak direct, one day. But it seems to me that like people are kind of taking it maybe a little bit more into their own hands and like seeking out more specialty service as well. Kind of like I've been noticing like people are using kind of like maybe social media to locate service, and like ambassadors, for example, like, because I'm an ambassador for Current Designs and Lindell Paddles. And so like now I'm not a sales rep for them, but people kind of like reach out and I can point them in the right direction and kind of go there. And it's like kind of like an interesting avenue that is not quite retail. And, it's just kind of like, I don't know, maybe I'm just because I've become more freelance and that's just kind of how I see it. But I know that, it seems like retailers are having a hard time, and I think manufacturers are having a hard time keeping up with that demand. And so it's just like the Wild West. Like I feel like it could be a good opportunity to have a retail, specialty sea kayak situation here in the cities. But, I don't know if I'd be able to get the gear.
Yeah, they've already sold it all. That's cool. So the last
I've filled the gap.
Yeah, that's it.
But just kind of like offering that service, and like I work with Chris Bench, and he's got Captain Salties, and so like I'll just do some instruction when the help is needed. And I haven't necessarily kept up with my cert, but for somebody who's looking for private instruction, that's pretty much all I'm interested in these days anyway. So, for those who want to come out on Lake Superior. That's kind of, there aren't very many of them. So
who knows? Maybe somebody wants a alternative kayaking experience inland as opposed to at the coast, and they're willing to travel. Who knows?
Hey, the one of the selling points for me moving here a few years ago was that Minneapolis has a fantastic airport, and the flights are usually pretty cheap. And so from major cities, Seattle, Portland, Los Angeles, Atlanta, New York, and pretty much any of them, you can come, I'll pick you up, and we can make a pretty affordable trip out of it.
Superb. There you go, folks, take him up on the offer. So, Ben, last question. What's your message to all the people that get out there in the outdoors?
I say keep it light and keep it fun. Don't take it too seriously. Don't spend all your money on certifications. I'd say leave some room for like just figure out what you find important, and don't try to like tick every box. And maybe that's not the most like popular opinion, but I found that I am most happy being in the outdoors, doing kind of what I love, and that happens to be rough water sea kayaking, sea kayak surfing. And so like I have just I kind of started saying no to certain opportunities that maybe I thought like I needed to do, or like as a sea kayaker is like important to like check off on the list. But it's like, well, no, I can just do my day trips and like have fun and like learn the skills that are important to me, and like kind of like enjoy that little bit. And I kind of like think that that's my biggest takeaway with being out and getting out in the outdoors, especially during COVID, and kind of like not having a bunch of people to go out with, and just kind of like discovering that on my own.
Cool. Thank you. So, folks, I want you to encourage you all to go and check out Ben, check out BF Paddles. You can use their social media links, all the websites, all the details are in the description below. So if nothing else, just go look at the stunning imagery on Ben's website. It is a work of art all on its own. Ben, I want to thank you for your time today, and I hope that 2021 is an epically successful year for yourself and for everything BF Paddles. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. It's starting to look like it.
Cool.
Yeah, and thank you very much. Hopefully, see you at Three Arch Rocks again.
Hell yeah.